Awakenings, we discuss anomalous phenomena, the strange, the curious, the extraordinary, the bizarre. Throw in the occasional conspiracy theory, and you get us. Cecil, Hadley, Stephen, Tully, and myself, Morgana. Just a few of the weird kids. Wyrd Awakenings is a part of the Weird Realities Network. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us tonight on Wyrd Awakenings. You're here with myself, Morgana, and Tully and Stephen, and our good friend, Scott Baker. Hey, we appreciate you coming on. We've missed you.
Thank you. It's good to be back. As I was telling the others, school ended yesterday, so I've got an entire summer free.
Awesome. That's cool. Yeah, like I said, we always have a great time when you join us. So,
well, thank you.
Yes, and tonight we're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
So, for those of you that don't know, we are going to be talking about the mysterious men in black. And for those who don't know, Scott is actually a previous CIA. I'm going to say operative because that sounds cool.
Yeah, thank you.
So, okay, be honest. When you joined the CIA, How long was it before someone asked you about the men in black?
Oh, my first trip back. My cousin is a huge alien conspiracy fanatic. And every time I'd come back to visit, he'd take me out for lunch. And then, we either walk along a beach or he'd play the radio in his car and ask me to tell him all about the aliens. And I'd always tell him, if I tell you, they're going to kill us both. So
that's cool. That's really awesome. Because like I said, I've been probably one of the first things when I started looking at the off normal stuff was alien stuff, because I'm from a small town and you don't get a ton of that kind of subject material, but aliens had more than other stuff that I discovered later and everything. So, it was kind of cool. I guess I was probably 5th, 6th grade the first time I found something that was about, people from outer space. And, you had, what was it? Star Trek when I was, a kid. And everything, but that was about the only thing really around, because they didn't even do a ton of TV stuff unless you were lucky enough to catch some of the weird off channels that most people didn't get back then.
Right.
What, Stephen, you look like you were going to say something.
Oh, no. Okay. Way back then, I forget, there were a few things, that come on. It was probably In Search Of, is probably what would have been an early on thing for us. With
Leonard Nimoy,
all the other stuff, Loch Ness. I'm certain that it would have started for me, when I was a child back in the 70s.
Yeah.
For me, it was the old Twilight Zone, and particularly Outer Limits.
Yeah. Those were cool. But Leonard Nimoy was just phenomenal, even back there. He was always just one of those people that could tell a story, because they revamped it back in the early 2000s, I think, with what's his name? I can picture him. He actually played Spock in the newer renditions.
Oh, I know. Yes, who you mean? Yeah. He's a great actor.
Yeah, he was in American Horror Story. Like I said, it was several things, but they revamped them, and it didn't get nearly the traction that the original did. But like I said, I can remember in college, I went back to school in 94, I think it was. And I was sitting in my first art history class, and the guy was up there, and he had pretty much retired from teaching. The only class he taught was he did, art history right there in that time period. And he goes, so, we did this, that. And, if you ever saw In Search of Ancient Aliens with Leonard Nimoy, and he'd go off into this spiel about the Nazca lines and stuff like that, and he was so narrow you know, you'd have never expected this out of this man's mouth. But, you know, it gave me a whole new line of respect for him because I'm like, hey, he knows what in search of is. So,
well, like to me, I grew up when I was a kid. It was like aliens, Bigfoot, you know, the Bermuda Triangle. And I remember I was about, I think, 12 years old, 12 or 13, when my old man took me to see Close Encounters. And I'm sitting there, and the minute they get into that opening scene, when you see all the TBFs, it was like I was like overflowing with like, oh my God, Dad. And I was telling them all the conspiracy.
Yeah. That's cool. Yeah, like I said, and they had some really cool stuff, you know, but the thing is, because it wasn't so much, I guess now, a kid now that was, you know, looking for stuff, there's so much there between the internet and the movies and the television, you know, it's amazing, you know, how much more there is now. But I think you got better information back then because you didn't have so much taken away from it.
I was going to say, Morgana, I don't know if you know how to do it easily, but if you want to throw the comments up so that Scott can see them in the corner,
I'm
like
reading them.
Oh, okay.
I just can't respond to them.
Well,
I forget how we even did that. She was messing with a setting last week where everybody, because
oh yeah,
usually we have people commenting like from Twitter, from YouTube, and everybody can see everybody's comments on the screen, like the viewers.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure how you did that last week. I
see the chats, but I can't. I have to join the chat, and to do that, I have to go off and put in a password I forgot 20 years ago.
Let me. I'll mess around with it, Morgana.
It's show comments on stage.
Okay, I'll look for it.
Okay, all right. Okay, so on a scale of 1 to, my clearance doesn't let me talk about that. Are the men in black real?
You're asking me.
Okay, there's our answer.
I take the horror sci-fi writer, the conspiracy theorist, and the CIA officer, and I say, yes, but not the way we think of them. I am sure when the first people were, you know, oh, I saw an alien. I'm sure the government agents, this was the 40s, 50s, early 60s, showed up to talk to them. They thought they were either nut jobs, communists causing trouble, or they saw something top secret that they called a UFO. I'm sure the men in black are real, but I'm sure they were just FBI, CIA agents, not the men in black, which I would love to have been part of that group. The men in black from the movies.
Basically, maybe those original, you know, operatives were just really good at being spooky, you know, because like I said, you know, the suits and, you know, like I said, I mean, you know, one person probably took that and ran with it. Oh my God, they came to me and here's what they said and they did.
Yeah.
So do you think that, wait, hang on. Let me think about how to word it. So do you think that the particular group, as it were, that would do something like that, maybe use some of the, you know, the common, like the movies and things like that, to try to play into that, maybe to keep people from being, you know, taking it too seriously?
I don't know.
What's up, Holly?
To be honest, in 23 years, I never saw, heard anything about the Majestic 12, any groups like that. Maybe the FBI had it. I don't think so. I think they'd have, some of the FBI would have trouble spelling UFO. Rivalry joke. I never really knew about. I mean, yeah, we all joked about it. A friend of mine told me that back in the old days, remember when you used to have those huge rooms, air-conditioned rooms, where you had the big tall hard drives for the computers.
Yeah.
They were in the basement, and somebody had made a sign, alien cryogenic chamber. And my friend had a summer intern who kept on begging him, do you know anything about the air? Come on, you got to tell me. So on his last day, he says, I'm going to show you something, but you got to swear yourself to secrecy. And he took him all over the place, leading him through janitors' areas and that, and then showed him the computer room, alien cryogenic unit. So I'm sure this kid is like out there telling everybody, I saw it. It's in the CIA.
Yeah, there was do you remember like back when the popularity it may have even been before the movies, but there was a video of allegedly Men in Black caught on tape.
Yeah.
And they were it was almost like their suits were too big for the bodies and their heads were too small for the bodies. There's been a lot of videos like that over the years that have come out that are like, you know, these people showed up randomly after an event like a UFO sighting or some strange anomaly. Like I've even heard it around Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It happened. It actually happened in Texas with that's the one case that I was told. Let's say I was told by a person who would definitely know that the person got visited by somebody.
Yeah. Well, that's one thing that we've heard, Scott, is that I guess there's a like a tagging program for cryptids, and that if a Bigfoot were to get like hit by a car,
mm-hmm.
that they know, and that there's a response team that comes to retrieve the body. That is associated with like the outer sort of schema of Men in Black.
Honest, I'm being very truthful. If I knew, I would deny. I would say no. If I knew, I would say I can't talk about it. I never knew of anything within the government. Like, you know, like I know Area 51 was where the Air Force was making all its top secret programs. And they loved the UFO conspiracy theories because, you know, they take off a new jet aircraft and somebody's like, oh, planes don't fly like that. It's a UFO. And the Air Force was like, yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, even Google Earth today, it still censors some of the sites that that kind of stuff's going on. Like there's one in California where it's just a blur where they've got
it's not China Lake, is it?
It could be.
I think so.
It could be.
The reason. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No,
ahead.
finish up.
Well, I was just going to say about the Hollow Mountain in Area 51. Like apparently, there's a research facility where they can. I don't know. I guess they're already at some kind of altitude, like they can just launch aircraft out of.
Yeah. See, and that right there, there's a lot of talk about that right there. And then I've also listened to another man from the area, Hoyt, and he says that he's walked all over the mountain, said he's never seen that. So, I mean, here you go again. And Scott, I think it's very interesting, you know, I do not doubt you for a second whenever you say you're telling the truth about this, that you don't know it, because I really believe that it seems like a lot of that stuff, everything was so compartmentalized that it didn't move over. It didn't leak over, you know.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I have no clue. None of my friends even said to me, oh, yeah, I worked over at the alien thing. So.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I remember I made the suggestion to my boss. Remember when those people were going to break into Area 51 to find out? Yeah. I said that what they should have done was they should have dressed up all the security guards in gorilla outfits with like fishbowl helmets. Had some guy running around, you know the suit where like it's like the alien captured you and you're running around. And I would have hired Brent Spiner to redo his role from Independence Day. You know, stand up there. No, you can't come in.
Actually, I found what I was talking about. I'm not going to play the sound or anything, but so the video footage, at least, I did find. let's see. It starts here in a second. So they walk in.
Yeah.
And people are saying that like those guys look weird. Like when you zoom in on it, these suits and stuff look really big, and they're almost like there's not a lot of facial recognition that's going on because it's a little blurry. But yeah,
Well, they also look like they're wearing greatcoats, overcoats.
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
but yeah, you can see like, and I think they were a woman that spoke with men. Yeah, so so it says the woman that spoke with these men felt like that they knew what she was thinking, which could be mentalist tactics, like for interrogation or what have you.
Mm.
But yeah, this video and the encounter fueled speculation because I believe they were responding to someone that had a UFO encounter.
Gotcha.
It's possible, but the conspiracy theory feeds itself. You know, if somebody in an apartment building, if somebody in a business told their friend, I saw a UFO last night, and then next day, two guys walk in suits to go to the lawyer's office, of course, it's going to be the Men in Black.
Right. Yep. Well, what I was talking about with China Lake, my husband drives a truck. They know. I don't know. I didn't know if you knew or not, but he used to a couple of times went to China Lake, which is in the middle of the desert in California. The weird thing to me was the fact that he was leaving from the Gulf Coast to go to China Lake in the desert, where they build ships, disassemble them, then bring them back to the Gulf Coast and reassemble them in the water. And he said the first time he went, he said you'd go around like this grouping of mountains. He said, and then when you turn to go in, that it's all fenced off, and there are these people hanging over the sides of the fence taking your picture and stuff. And he's like, "What is that about?" I'm like, "You don't know what Area 51 is?" And he's like,
That's
"Well,
hilarious.
no." I said, "Same concept. These people think that there's something big conspiracy-wise going on in there, so they're taking pictures of people coming and going because it's all fenced off and everything." But yeah, he had never heard of anything like that. He goes, "Well, I heard there were supposed to be aliens, but wasn't that in Nevada somewhere?" I'm like, "That's not the only place, honey. They're supposed to be everywhere." So,
Yeah.
Everything from Roswell was supposedly taken to Wright-Patterson.
Yep. So,
And Wright-Patterson, and what was the base in Ohio?
Isn't Wright-Patterson the base in Ohio?
Maybe.
So yeah.
Okay.
The only time I used my CIA credentials was my cousin, who was the conspiracy theorist. We were at a Christmas party, and him and his friend were talking about how the moon landing was faked. And, they're coming up with all the Kubrick did it. And after about 15 minutes, I got mad at them and told them they had no clue what they were talking about. We made it to the moon because it was part of the bargain. We gave them asylum. They gave us the technology. That's why we did it and no one else. And I stormed out of the room. This wife comes in 5 minutes later and she goes, "You are such an ass." Now that's all they're talking about.
I love it.
I know.
That's awesome.
Well, it's funny. Even the kids at school are always making jokes. One of the kids asked me one day, because they know I was Asian, they go, "What do you know about the aliens?" And I said, "I've told you 3 times. He goes, "No, you haven't." I says, "Oh, that's right. I used the neuralizer on you." And for like 3 seconds, he's looking at me like, "What?" And then I was like, "Yeah, sure."
Say, well, you kind of left yourself open to it, So,
But I mean,
okay.
The movies made them. I mean, after the movies, it was just like everybody now thinks, they think Will Smith and oh God, what was his name?
Tommy Lee.
Yep, Tommy Lee Jones.
Tommy Lee Jones, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead.
To me, Scott, one of the most convincing stories about the Men in Black probably would have been around the Mothman sightings in West Virginia, because the people who showed up, they kept showing up, asking questions. I mean, to me, that right there was probably one of the more convincing cases. And I mean, the MIBs, you know, they could have been just regular people.
Yeah,
who
I don't know.
sent, you know, to ask questions.
What was the Mothman? When was the first Mothman sightings?
It was in the 70s.
Yeah, so even back then, they probably still would have been wearing the dark suits. I mean, I'm not saying government officials don't show up.
Right.
I'm just not saying that they don't work in an underground facility that's located underneath the air tower for the subway tunnels.
So what are the odds that some of these MIBs aren't actual agents for like the Winchesters on Supernatural?
Yeah,
They're just showing up with a badge, you know.
Well, I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's very possible, you know. Now, you know, we immediately assume, oh, they're there because it's a cryptid. Oh, they're there because it's an alien. They could be there for completely other reasons. You know, they may not be. I mean,
Yeah.
But I don't buy like I said, as far as I know, there is no organization that does that. But then
I saw that Clark commented, how about Hangar 57? I'm not familiar with Hangar 57, Clark. If you mean, I have heard of Hangar 18, which is at the Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. There's a lot of like conspiratorials around that. I don't know if that's what you meant, but if you want to look and let us know, we'll talk about it.
I've heard of Hangar 57, but it rings a bell, but I can't say it off the top of my head.
Yeah, the conspiracy with Hangar 18 at Wright-Patterson, there's like, it's allegedly a place where they house UFO debris. There's allegedly been alien bodies.
Yeah.
And it was apparently popularized in the 70s, like right around the time as like, well, I guess later than Area 51. But there was supposed to have been a UFO crash that happened in Mexico, and the wreckage and bodies were transported to the Wright-Patterson.
Yeah, that was Roswell.
Yeah.
Well, this happened. Was it?
Yeah.
I don't know. This says Aztec, New Mexico. Maybe that is Roswell.
Oh, I don't know what Aztec is, but
yeah, 1947 is when the Roswell incident happened.
So this was. It says that the Aztec crash happened in 1948.
Could be.
So,
okay.
The original UFO crash the Roswell went to Hangar 18. So, I mean, it just makes sense that if there were any other crashes,
it would go. Yeah.
they'd go to Hangar 18. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. So yeah, I don't know, Clark. Give us some meat on the bone for Hangar 57, and I'll do some research while we're speculating.
Yeah.
So Scott,
Yes.
if you were a man in black, what would your go-to creepy catchphrase be when you want to talk to somebody?
I don't know. I mean, out of the two of them, I know I'd be more like Tommy Lee Jones with that dull, dry sense of humor. You know, you got to be kidding. We're the FBI. We don't have a sense of humor. You know?
Right.
That was like one of my favorite lines because I can just picture, you know, we said it at the agency, we said it at the FBI.
Mm-hmm.
I think I would be much more like him than I would Will Smith.
Yeah. Well, you know, and I think a lot of that too, like I said, because I do love the movie. You know, I don't know how I feel about the international one so much, but you know, the originals, yeah, I really like that set.
Yeah, the first and the third were especially the third one. When he goes back in time and meets the young Tommy Lee Jones and finds out how he became the uptight guy he was.
It happens.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, like I said, and they really played off of each other very well.
Yeah.
The older seasoned guy, and then this young kid who knows everything that really doesn't know anything. So yeah, I think that's why it stayed as long as it has. Some things are just meant to be a classic from the day they release, and I think that's one of them.
Yeah. I forgot they made the Men in Black. I started watching that and was like, nope.
I watch it, and I mean, I don't hate it, but I think I had too much invested in the original cast of characters that I just couldn't, get into the international ones.
Now, I got to admit, one show I never watched because I was overseas, and I'm going to binge watch it this summer, is X-Files.
Oh,
I did it. I did it last year. Watched it from episode 1 and did the movies in order all the way to the final episode, and it is totally worth it.
And do not forget the Lone Gunman.
Yeah.
Your binge.
Yeah. Here's something that you may find interesting, Scott. This gets into our conspiratorials, but I think the reason the Lone Gunman only had one season, the first episode was about the premise was that someone had remotely taken over large airplanes full of people and remote controlled them into the Twin Towers to start a geopolitical war.
Oh,
and it was like a year before it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So probably the reason that it got canceled, but there's a lot within the X-Files as you watch through that you're like, that's relevant to today. Like there's an episode where artificial intelligence holds people hostage in a building.
All right.
And then you start to look into it, and these big, like the private equity firms, like the big ones.
Yeah.
You start to get into it, and like BlackRock has been using an artificial intelligence since the 80s called Aladdin.
Oh.
To help with its acquisitions and stuff. So anything that you kind of hear, especially in the first few seasons, there's a lot of Native American like cryptids and stuff like that, and they're real. Like you can Google, well, you know what I mean. Like they're part of the actual culture that you can Google and research about and stuff. So I would say as you hear stuff that perks your ears up, just like pause and like learn about it, because it's very cool stuff.
I did see one episode and I loved it. The one when the town thinks the cockroaches are like aliens because the guy died of a heart attack, and when they found the body, they found the cockroaches, and the whole town just went mad with the conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
That one I liked. That one was like, okay, that I could see.
Did you, Tully, when you were doing your binging, did you watch the Millennium TV series?
I never did. I still need to.
Because it was really weird, because it was running up to the year 2000, conspiracies and stuff. And, that was when it was supposed to be this huge thing. And it went for a season and a half, 2 seasons, and then they canceled it. And then when it hit 1999 going into 2000, they brought it into the X-Files as like a 2-hour episode.
Okay.
And the show I thought was great up until they mixed in the episode with the X-Files. And I think they did that just to kind of tie it up.
It's kind of like how they had to pause Black Mirror because it was getting too heavy during COVID.
Yeah.
There was another series. I wish I could think of the actors who were in it. It was that had that X-Files feel to it, and it was phenomenal. I wish I could remember the name of it. And then
talk about it. Maybe one of us is like, what was the premise?
If I remember, it was like these kids had gone to if I remember, they were experimented on with drugs to try to get their mental abilities to improve. And the girl that joined up with the organization didn't realize this until later. And it was like every episode was going after some strange event. And then, I think it was at the end of the second or third season, they wound up being teleported 50 years into the future where there had been an apocalypse. But that's when
crazy.
I stopped watching the show. I'll see if I can think of it. If I can remember the actor's name, I can look it up and let you know. It was actually much better than I thought it would be.
I would totally watch that. I've been watching The Expanse. I don't know if you all have ever messed with that. So it's becoming one of my favorite shows. The premise is like, I don't know, 200 years into the future, Earth has colonized Mars and has also colonized the asteroid belt for resources.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many people on all three of those now that like Mars wants to secede from Earth and the belt wants to secede from both of them. And it talks about like the implications of extraterrestrial influence and stuff like that. But it's more of like a, like what would actually really happen if something like that were to happen. It was on Sci-Fi originally, but then got canceled, I think, on season 2, and Prime picked it up for another 4 seasons. So it is like, it's phenomenal.
I think I watched the first season and then kind of got away from it. It's back on my to-do list.
You would love it, for a fact. No questions asked.
Cool. That's okay. Okay, let me ask you this. Is it something you can watch and do something else at the same time, or do you need to focus?
You got to focus.
Okay, then I won't put it on my...
I usually just watch like 1 or 2 episodes, and then because that's all I can handle of a serious show.
Well,
but
I tend to this time of year when I'm busy, because like I said, I work all day, come home and work half the night. I usually binge a lot then, but I try not to binge anything that needs concentration, because I'll quit working and start watching. And then I don't get my work done. So
that's why, thank God for Tubi.
That's right.
I'm watching now Popeye's Revenge. Popeye's Revenge. It's about a kid, Popeye, who grew up with big, strong arms, and he was kind of weird, and the parents send him to school, and he beats up, somebody who was bullying his best friend. So the whole community burns down the house with him and his parents, but he survived, and now anybody that comes near the house, he starts killing. It's horrible. It came out in 2025, well, 2 months ago, and is already on Tubi. That should tell you everything you need to know. It's the perfect movie because I can like concentrate on this and like look over and go, oh, that murder is horrible. That murder is lame, and then go back.
Yeah. So that's like I said, that's how I have to do it that way, because I either miss good, important stuff on the show, or I don't get my work done. Yeah. So it's the same thing when I listen to audiobooks all day. But if it's something that's really got my interest, I flip to something else until I can focus on what I want to read or listen to. So, all right. So let's say somebody did stumble on some like classified technology or a big event. What would be the protocol for containing that?
I don't know. We've never I mean, the area I worked in, I worked WMD. If we stumbled across some WMD or some facility in a country we didn't think was producing it, they'd send over a ton of analysts and that to look at it, see how they were doing, where they got the info.
Hey, Ellen.
I don't know if a UFO crashed. I don't know. I'm assuming. I mean, I know the Pentagon would be the first one that wanted it. The FBI would say, well, it's in America. The CIA would go, yeah, but it came from a foreign place.
Right.
So what do you think? This is more of a definitely a we're in the folk thing, but what do you think about all of the orb sightings that were happening toward the end of last year, into this year? Like, people were seeing UFOs and orbs all over America, and they were blaming China, they were blaming Iran.
There was a mothership off the East Coast that was setting them out.
Yeah, they're talking about non-human biologics in the ocean. What do you think about all that? Is it disinformation?
I don't think it's disinformation. I think one person, it's like that old game you used to play in high school, like 12 of you would get lined up. You'd whisper something to your first friend and then see what it was like at the end.
Yeah.
I use an example once. When I first moved to Florida, my wife called me one night. I was waiting to pick up my stepdaughter, and she's like, all excited. Oh my God, there's a UFO. Everybody's reporting seeing a UFO. It's over here. It's over there. She says, oh my God, it's flying over your area. And I looked up. Yeah, it was a Goodyear blimp.
Yeah.
Anybody that wasn't, that looked up and studied it for a minute, but half of Gainesville thought it was a UFO.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure none of us would have batted an eye, but back whenever it was going on, you've got all of our elected officials testifying to Congress that there's like non-human biologics. That's what they kept saying instead of aliens that were coming out of the ocean. It was really bizarre to see like elected officials talking about that sort of thing. And the orbs and everything else.
I mean, the orbs could very well have been a top secret program. Personally, I think that's what happened at Roswell. I think that a top secret project crashed. And the media, the guy who did, I can't remember his name, the guy who did the press conference was not briefed. So, I'm sure they told him it's top secret, don't tell him. Remember, 1947, UFOs weren't a popular phrase. And I think he just went out and said, oh, it's a UFO. And then his boss got mad at him and said, you can't say that. So he switched it to weather balloon. I think that is the reason why it blew out of control. As for non-human biologics, that could be.
It could be your cat that you're petting.
Yeah,
like they're coming out of the water.
Non-human biologics coming out of the water. Like a jellyfish. Now, the only reason that would perk up my ears is they're not saying what it is.
Yeah, so let me see. I'll see if I can find the video and we'll laugh at it real quick.
They're not saying what it is, so it could be something that might be bad. Something from the deep. I don't know.
Well, who knows what's down in the deep?
Oh, God. I know. That fish that they found like 20 years ago, the fish with the light in front of it.
Oh, yeah.
Occasionally I'll find something that National Geographic has put out and it'll show things that have been seen on those deep dive subs. Yeah. And you're like, God, I hope I never fall down there because there's some creepy stuff down that deep.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So, I got her queued up here. Let me, we'll laugh at this for a minute, but you have to tell me whether you can hear the audio. Just give me like a thumbs up or something when I get it going here. All right.
I guess human or non-human biologics?
Non-human. A former intelligence officer testified to Congress that the U.S. government is in possession of alien biologics, which is like body parts. But a lot of people are wondering why this isn't a bigger story. Well, there's a pretty good reason.
Well, I wasn't trying to listen to him. I just saw her face. Let me see if I can find the actual clip.
Gotcha.
I don't want to hear somebody talk about it. I just want to hear her talk about it.
Right. I gotcha.
Okay, so continue until I can find this clip.
Plus, if it's a member of Congress asking the question, I'm sorry, I'm not a fan of Congress at all. Both parties.
Yeah, you're in the right place then. Because
you're definitely in the right place.
That's what I try to tell people all the time. They're like, "Oh, well, wait. Why are you assuming I give a damn about either side? Yeah. They're playing us against each other." So, yeah. I figure, hey, if you come out of Congress with more money than you went in with, then you are officially useless.
Okay, here we go.
Do you believe our government has made contact with intelligent extraterrestrials?
Something I can't discuss in public setting.
Okay, I can't ask when you think this occurred. If you believe we have crashed craft, stated earlier, do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
As I've stated publicly already in my News Nation interview, biologics came with some of these recoveries. Yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human biologics?
Non-human, and that was the assessment of people with direct knowledge on the program I talked to that are currently still on the program.
So Scott's cat was flying the aircraft.
You know about you.
But that's just alarming. Like you would have an intelligence official get up there on TV that they knew was going to be public and be like, yeah, we recovered non-human bodies from a crash.
Well, I mean, and I'm just throwing this out there because I don't know if the North Koreans, the Iranians, somebody else is working on it. But remember, the first astronauts from the Soviet Union were dogs and monkeys.
True. So maybe an advanced aircraft that they were like testing the physics out with an animal.
Right.
I got you. Yeah, yeah.
You know, and then they don't want to say it was a dog, you know, because people would be like, today people would be like, "What? You killed a dog?" You know,
I would much rather them test on humans.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
Members
I could think of some demographics of people like just that are in perpetual prison.
I mean, the one thing I know from working for the government is sometimes we use ridiculous language to try to cover up something that's not really a cover-up.
Mm-hmm.
But because you're using non-human biologics, it sets off the alarm bells with everyone.
Well, and that was kind of one of the things that I was thinking too, you know, because the Men in Black myth, like I said, being back in the 50s and everything, that's when the Cold War was going on and everything. So maybe, you know, intelligence, counterintelligence, they just immediately jumped to, you know, and maybe they use that as tactics to kind of keep people from asking the right questions.
And I think I think the government allowed the UFO conspiracies because if they were, you know, it's a UFO, well, it's not a Soviet weather balloon going across the continent taking photographs of anything. It's not that new American jet fighter flying through the sky. Everybody's focused on something that they can't prove, and the reality just slips by.
Well, and that's we've talked about before. When the government starts admitting, oh yeah, there were aliens in Roswell, what are they trying to keep us from watching? Yeah. Because, you know, they denied it for decades, and now all of a sudden, oh yeah, it really happened. So something went under the radar that week. But, you know, I mean, and I feel like that anytime you've got intelligence agencies or not intelligence agencies, as some of your other friends may be, you know, you're going to use what's available to keep people from digging into things you don't want them to know about.
Yeah. You distract them.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Exactly.
You know, like, you know, 47, he said it was a UFO and then was forced to change. Mm-hmm. That provided
perfect cover story.
Like 60, 70 years of, you know, well, we'll just say, you know, they'll say it's a UFO and we'll say we can't confirm or deny that. And boom, everybody believes it.
Yep. So what do you think we'll jump to the movies just as a question. So how much do they actually get right in their portrayal of, you know, covert operatives and stuff like that?
I always joke with people that the most accurate TV show or movie that portrays the CIA was I can't think of the name of it. The Stan Smith one. It was the cartoon series by Seth MacFarlane, where Stan Smith is the CIA officer with Roger the alien. I always joke that's more accurate. Really, I've not seen a good portrayal except for the ending was the movie. Oh God, it begins with A. It's about the covert operation during the Iranian hostage crisis to sneak out Americans who weren't in the embassy when the takeover took place, and how they set up this entire. They were living with Canadians, and they set up this American Dad. Thank you, Londa. Thank you. And they set up this covert operation where they sent a crew in with a script that begins with A, that was to take place on a desert planet. They were Canadians. We were pretending to be Canadians. And we flew in and we gathered them all up and we flew them back out. And the Iranians were like, this is great. Yeah, we're going to make a movie. And it stayed a secret. The Canadians said they snuck them out, and we didn't say anything for like 30 or 40 years.
Cool.
I mean, now at the end of the movie, it's very dramatized. But some of the movies just, they just don't get it right.
Yeah.
My son watched a series a couple of years ago, and he keeps telling me, Mom, you really need to watch this, called The Americans. And I haven't watched it, but it was basically about, if I'm not mistaken, Russian operatives that were put in this country to portray Americans so they could get,
right,
intel and stuff. And I don't remember whether he said he thought it was over dramatized or not, but he enjoyed it. And the fact that it was a more serious subject matter surprised me, because at that time he was not a big, serious television person.
Yeah, and that's based on truth. But I think what happened was most of them who came here, they didn't have to report or anything. They lived as Americans, and if they were needed, the KGB would contact. Most of them were just like, hell, we like this place. And, they just never talked to the Soviets again.
Right. And what better way to defect?
Yeah.
Than on their dime. They send you here and, give you the means to live here.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool, because like I said, Russia during the Cold War is just not a place I think would be good to be.
No.
So
you had what was it, the Bolshevik genocide? All that crazy stuff going on.
Like when they starved more than 1 million people in the Ukraine. Well, I've got good friends, one who lived in Poland under the communists and one who lived in Romania under the communists, and they just tell the same stories. You couldn't get anything to eat. Nobody wanted to talk to each other. It was now Poland is like one of the safest countries in Europe. Romania is bustling, but the prices of housing down there are low.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did manage to find one more clip.
Okay.
We can react to of these guys talking about it. This is from let's see. From the news. Let's see. I skipped it to the part where he actually starts talking. Let me
and they claim that the US and its adversaries were hiding away UAP technologies. Take a listen to what he had to say.
Let me be clear. UAP are real. Advanced technologies not made by our government or any other government are monitoring sensitive military installations around the globe. I believe we are in the midst of a multi-decade secretive arms race, one funded by misallocated taxpayer dollars and hidden from our elected representatives and oversight bodies.
Now, this witness urged the new Trump administration.
Oh, that was it.
Well,
But
what he said reminded me of, I thought, the funniest line in Independence Day. And he says, when the president goes to the Area 51, how did you build all this without us knowing? And the Jewish father goes, what? You think they really spent $700 on a hammer?
Yeah, exactly.
Myself, oh my God, how they worked that in there was beautiful.
Oh, it
Yes.
was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Luke Elizondo, he's been trying to be a whistleblower for many years. So it's he's been there several times. Trying to testify.
I honestly don't know if we're hiding something or whether these whistleblowers just trying to make a name for themselves, like the guy that got punched in the face by one of the first moon landers.
Oh,
yeah. It was Buzz Aldrin.
Buzz Aldrin.
Yeah.
And he keeps on, you never went to the moon. We went to the moon.
I agree that we probably went to the moon. I do think that the original footage was faked, and for probably obvious reasons. Because it's too produced. You've got people calling from the moon on a landline that the president picks up, and then you've got the camera angle of it taken back off with the people. There's too much noise in the numbers there. It's like the a year or two ago with the Indian moon landing footage. It was so awful. They said it was real for like a month, and then they were like, actually, it's just a representation of what it was.
Well,
because it looked like gold foil.
Yeah.
Yes, it was bad. It was really bad.
I do admit that they never explained how there was a camera standing there when Armstrong comes down and is the first one to land on the moon.
Scott, look up the original, like the first spacewalk footage.
Yeah.
And the background looks like a background from The Wizard of Oz. You've got like all the twinkling stars on a flat background. But yeah, it's wild. But not to say that they didn't go to the moon, but back then it was so hard. I think they wanted to exert their dominance over all other space programs and shove it in the world's face and say, we are the big dogs.
Yeah.
So, no hate. I'm just saying at this point, come on, man.
Yeah.
Like
the whole space program, yes, it was to get to the moon, but Sputnik was to put a satellite into orbit. Yeah, it was broadcasting weird, it was broadcasting some beep, beep, beep. Now we've got spy satellites. If you can put 3 men on the moon or 2 men on the moon, you can drop 10 nuclear warheads on New York City. That's what the whole space race was about. Like I learned, the difference between a space rocket and an ICBM is the warhead. Is the cargo on the front.
Yep.
Absolutely.
All
right.
Fred was barking because Smokey was outside sniffing. He wants to come in.
So I guess if you could know, like if somebody came to you and was like, if you really want to know about all this, or like if somebody knocked on your door in an hour and is like, hey, we need you to stop talking about this online. Like we'll tell you everything. You just need to stop talking about it. Would you get in on it?
Depends who shows up. No, but I mean, if it was like a friend of mine who I knew worked at the agency who said, look, they sent me here to shut you up. Come on, I'm taking you to Hangar 18. Like supposedly Nixon did with Jackie Gleason. I don't know if you've heard that story. Jackie. Yeah.
Then
I would definitely like, oh yeah, I got to know this. But
they do address that in the X-Files too. There's a hangar and everything that they go into.
But I would also write the biggest, best kiss and tell book that would be published the day after my death. Well, I've always joked. I got to sit down and write it someday about how a friend of mine gets me into the alien program, and Roswell, the aliens didn't die. What happens is the ship crashes because of something with the gravitation. There were 2 other ones. There was the one in Siberia in 1917, and there was one thousands of years ago. And we're trying to find the bodies. They're the ones that built the space station that got us to the moon, because on the moon is where we transferred bodies and that. When the Soviet Union fell, Yeltsin gave us the bodies. We went up and we were looking for the third one. Third one crashed in Babylon. Where's Babylon? Iraq. What did we do in 2003?
Well, there's actually, it's crazy because, aliens and I wish Stephen was still here. Aliens and religion cross a lot in that manner. Because on the religious side, like we talked to a guy named Stan Deo quite a bit. He's like he's like a biblical expert. He was actually excommunicated from the US for like 10 years in top secret programs. He lived in Australia for a while, but he's written books about all this stuff. And he believes that it wasn't in search of a UFO per se, but a body is the reason that war was started. Is they wanted to recover the body of Nimrod. He has a bunch of names, but basically like a Nephilim body. And there's footage, albeit grainy, where these people are in a cave and they are seeing a body, and the body's like ornate gold in like a tomb, but the body looks like one of us like laying there. Like it's zero decomposition, zero mummification. It's before AI. It's been around for a while, like probably 10 years that footage has been out.
Well, my ex-wife made me watch every Ancient Aliens, and and it's fascinating that when you look at all of the biblical and all of the old artwork, yeah, that does look like a UFO, but is it supposedly a star or is it a UFO?
Yeah.
Well,
listen, when you get into it,
stuff.
When you get into it, like the Nephilim from the Bible, it lines up perfectly with the Anunnaki.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And like the stories and everything, and the wars that happened, like the interpretations of the Tower of Babel, could have either been super technology, like alien technology, or it could have been, literal interpretation of the Bible. But
the one problem I had with Ancient Aliens was humans are stupid. We couldn't build the pyramids. The aliens did it. We couldn't build the Great Wall of China. The aliens did it. We couldn't build the Aztec monuments. It's like, yeah, we could have.
We could have. Yeah, we could have. It'd have been much easier with help.
We used dinosaurs. I mean, that's
there are we get into some weird stuff, Scott. There's pottery from the 1500s where people are riding brontosaur into battle painted onto the pottery. So it's like, how did they know what brontosaur looked like back then?
I know.
It's just we get into all kinds of weird stuff. You
one
already know.
One of my favorite jokes, I've posted it before, is a T-Rex holding an alien spaceship in one hand and a Bible in the other. The archaeologist is looking, it's going to go, oh, this is going to screw everything up.
God, I do love when you come on, Scott. I wish you'd come on more often.
I will. I will. Now that I got everything in order, whenever you want me, invite me.
Yeah. Cool.
I've also got, and I wrote it as a script, and I'm going to be turning it hopefully this summer into a novel called Jurassic Ark. 65 million years ago, just before the meteorite hits, 10 spaceships leave Earth, taking with them different dinosaurs. 65 million years later, they land and let them free.
That's a cool thought. Maybe Joe, what was his name? Joe McMoneagle. Maybe he was right about all that. Maybe that's where they went, was Mars or something.
That's right. There's plenty of places to hide them over there.
I would say
I just love throwing conspiracy. I love it when I hear somebody talking about a conspiracy theory. I love throwing in something that verifies it's a conspiracy theory, but makes them rethink what they're thinking.
Well, I don't want to speak for Morgana, but if you're free all summer, you can literally jump on any week you want to. Any topic. Right. Morgana can send you the list, and if you want to jump on every Friday, just jump on with us.
All right, I'll see. I'd like to be here more often.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like I said, we have a list that we're pretty good at keeping to.
I didn't even see the viewer count. I guess we should say thank you to the 400 people that have stopped in tonight.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
We appreciate it very much. If you haven't, follow us on places. You can catch us on YouTube and X and Facebook, and then also weirdrealities.net. And you also have prior episodes up there too. And Scott, what have you got going on?
First of all, shameless self-promotion.
Absolutely.
If you want to read my version of what happened at Roswell, Operation Majestic, you can find it on my page on Amazon. It's referred to as Raiders of the Lost Ark meets Back to the Future with Nazis.
Awesome.
Ask for more than that. I mean, come on.
I'm going to be releasing around July 1st. I'm going to take one of my older novels, re-release it. I'm going to take the old one, Yaitso, re-release it as it came from the desert. I'm adding a short story to it. And I'm also adding handmade artwork from one of the kids at my school. I'm working on a World Gone Dark 2. And I also want to work on that zombie novel I've had in mind. The one about the zombie outbreak at Disneyland. It's a dead world after all.
Website. But where can people buy your books or look into
Scott M. Baker on Amazon. I've got my own Amazon page. Everything is there.
Scott's legit. Scott's a legit author. His books are awesome. His stories are awesome.
Thank you.
Please go check out his stuff. And hopefully he'll be here with us a little bit more often this summer before he gets back to raising the youth.
I will. I definitely will. No, I just got so on, this poor teacher got sick and boom, she was gone for 2 months. And I'm filling in for all of her art classes. I have no clue about. I could draw straight out the floor, and here I am, and this is ancient American painting.
That's awesome. I love the thought of you shaping minds.
Yeah.
We need more weird people in the world.
Yeah, but some people think I'm a bad influence, so which I am.
True. Well, I think we all have a bad habit of that.
That's right. All right, everybody. Again, we appreciate you joining us. Definitely go to Amazon and check out Scott. I loved what I've read. And as a matter of fact, I owe you a couple of reviews, and I promise you that'll happen in the very near future. So next week, what are we talking about next week, Tully?
The secrets of the universe. I don't remember.
Stay tuned to social media, and I will let you know what we're going to be talking about next week. But until next time, stay weird.
Peace.